we're really doing this in 3 buckets. The first bucket is the overview, sort of an idea of some of what's going on in the region. The second one is, I hope, leading us into our conversation. And that's, what are some of the things that are already being done that are creative, that are innovative, that are cutting edge in other places across the country? Where are they having success in forming partnerships, in creating innovative programs? And what are some examples? And we wanted to get a sense of some of that and bring someone in. And we're very glad that Josh Corpus is with us. He's with the Vice President of the National Association of Workforce Boards. You can read his bio. I won't bore you with that. I'd rather have him spend more time in conversation with us. So with that being said, I'm going to bring Josh up, and really he's going to be the springboard to the rest of our conversation, which is what are some of the big and bold things we can do in the upstate. So Josh, lead it to you, and we'll get going with the rest of our day. Thank you for being here.
Can you hear me all right? In the name of big and bold, we're going to be using a presentation tool called Prezi today. That was actually a great introduction to the Workforce Investment Act, talking about what the workforce boards do in any given community. Really quick, for those of you that aren't familiar with what the National Association of Workforce Boards is, we're a nonprofit organization in Washington, D.C. that represents the 578 local workforce investment boards and the 555 state and territory boards across the country. You have four local boards here in the upstate, 578 nationally. You have what you call work links. There's 3,000 versions of those across the country, which are also part of our system at the National Association of Workforce Boards. Dean mentioned that a key component of the board is that private sector leadership. To put it into perspective a little bit, those 578 boards represent roughly 12,000 private sector volunteers. Those are business leaders in the community that sit on these workforce boards, care about what's happening in their community as it relates to talent development, and provide expertise on what it is they're seeing in their business and their industry that the board can theoretically act on. So I want to really set the context here a little bit of what is big and bold. And at the National Association, really, since when myself and my CEO came to NAWB 3 years ago, we immediately started getting asked questions about best practices. What are the really cutting edge things that are happening out there nationally? And we thought, we had a pretty good idea of, the impressive programs, the impressive campaigns, what were being done outside of simply managing the Workforce Investment Act. Those were very excellent things. Those were promising practices. And we felt pretty good about that. But we started to question that as the National Association, if we're going to encourage boards, and if we're going to encourage the public workforce system, and we're going to encourage communities to raise the bar, then what's the baseline? What is the baseline for impacting human talent development in a given community, and how much can the public workforce system and how much can the boards impact that? And we said, how do they do that? How do they do that? And these are the 4 kind of leadership capabilities that we've identified at the national level, and that we've actually spent the last year vetting with 12 workforce investment boards across the country and 205 board members that sit on those boards. We talked to them about these 4 strategic areas and asked them questions about what it was they were finding, whether or not they could relate to those strategic capabilities, those leadership capabilities, and how well they were doing them. So the good thing is, the public workforce system, nationally as represented by these 205 assessments, is doing a few things very well, and they're the fundamentals. And this is very good, and makes us very proud at the national level to see that the board members have a clear idea on what the vision is. They have a clear idea on what the strategic plan is, why they're doing it, who's involved, and how to make that happen. It's not all rosy. We've seen that there are definitely some areas where as a public workforce system in any given community and nationally, we can improve. And unfortunately, some of the weaknesses that we identified are in those very areas that at the national level we think are so important. Those areas of strategic management, of being able to effectively analyze and understand labor market information, that ability to strategically convene, which by the very fact that you guys are all in the same room, you guys are demonstrating, and through the leadership of the 4 workforce boards here in the upstate, that they're thinking about strategic convening, and they're thinking about how they get the right people in the room to talk about how to solve these community issues. But we have some issues that we found in these assessments with, you know, some of these people indicating that they only agreed or strongly agreed that their board was a leader in labor market information and analysis. 50% said that they were actually able to find other funding outside of the Workforce Investment Act. So those are definitely some areas of opportunity for improvement. So I want to real quickly explore those 4 strategic areas I just talked about in terms of best practices or promising practices that we've pulled out from across the country in various states and communities. At the national level in DC, there's a lot of talk around local versus regional versus state. We recognize that these issues of workforce development, these issues of human capital development, they're not confined to any given county, they're not confined to any given local workforce area. You know, these issues of industry, these issues of education, of workforce development, of training, they're shared by counties, by various areas that defy political boundaries. So we have a number of boards across the country that have actually established consortiums with one another and said, you know what, we are local workforce areas. We do operate independently. We govern separately, but our region shares a lot of the same problems. So we need to work together to address those problems. We need to work together to talk about those problems. We need to work together on how to find issues to those problems, how to find solutions to those issues. Texas is a great example. You just saw there your brothers in the north, in North Carolina. That's, you know, only 15 counties, 5 WIBs. We have here in Texas 5 WIBs in 75 counties. And again, the commitment here at this consortium in Texas is that no matter where you live or who you contact first, we will connect you to the right resources to meet your needs. So if a business comes in to a board in South Plains and say, we have issues X, Y, Z, and they say, we can help you, and so can Concho Valley, and so can Promethean Basin. I talked about understanding labor market information and how important that is that a community and that a workforce board is able to understand and analyze labor market information. They need to know where the jobs are and what kind of worker can fill those jobs. The labor market analysis is only useful insofar as you actually share it. So here we have a great example of the Tarrant County Workforce Investment Board in Dallas-Fort Worth area, recognizing that one of their leading industries of aerospace and defense was struggling with the same issues that so many various industries that rely on manufacturing or advanced manufacturing experience. And it was that they have an aging workforce and they don't have a lot of new workers to replace them. And it actually got so bad in Dallas-Fort Worth that companies were poaching each other's employees from the plants all the way up through management. So they worked with Bell Helicopter, they worked with Lockheed Martin, they worked with Vaughn to establish an aerospace cluster. This aerospace cluster discussed what these companies were seeing as an industry. They even sat down and discussed the skills that their workers shared. And the board helped them design a plan for creating a training program specifically to address and build those skills in Dallas-Fort Worth that all of those companies in that aerospace cluster were looking for. They went another step and they actually created outreach materials to go into public schools in 16 different counties in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and distribute information on what it meant to work in the field of aerospace and why it was a viable career and what kind of career pathways you needed to think about so that when you got your diploma, you knew that you needed to go to this training program to be able to do this job in aerospace. Again, here's the training program. They had hundreds of applicants, hundreds of placements as part of this. Again, we talked a little bit about strategic convening. We talked about really the power of the local workforce investment board to be that leader in a community, to serve as that catalyst, to serve as that organization that says we need to do something and we need to have a conversation around these issues that we're seeing in any given industry and with our workforce. So something as simple as trying to be strategic about management, try and really use the resources that they have at their disposal most effectively. Adams County and Arapahoe Douglas Workforce Investment Board in Colorado simply decided that they would combine their two subcommittees on healthcare. So those two subcommittees of the board actually began to meet together and talk across local workforce areas about the issues that both of those areas were seeing. It wasn't long after that activity also caught the attention of the Denver Workforce Investment Board, and Denver joined and began to participate in this partnership. So this healthcare career partnership was then solidified by an alliance called the Colorado Urban Workforce Alliance, which was not only these three workforce investment boards that were committed to an industry-led workforce education economic development collaborative around providing the kind of skilled workers that the 7 largest hospitals in their area needed, but they also brought in a whole range of other partners to help shape the training and help shape the activity that needed to occur around this alliance, so that they could effectively provide workers to their hospitals. They brought in large private companies, Kaiser Permanente, and I also know that the Aurora Chamber chipped in about $50,000 through their network on top of the $200,000 that those three workforce investment boards were able to generate to keep this collaborative going and to train the 151 workers that they placed in 2012. Finally, and again, this is one of the things that in our assessments we see boards really struggling with, and it's that issue of outreach, that issue of advocacy. Why are we relevant? Why is what we do called workforce development, why is it so important? And how can we help the community, and how can we help businesses in our area succeed and grow? And a lot of the conversation we have in Washington, D.C. around the importance of workforce development, why we fight for it, why we need it, comes back to, well, yeah, we have an unemployment issue. We have an issue where there aren't enough jobs. But training doesn't create jobs. No matter how many people you train, if there's not a job, they're not going to get a job. Well, we actually have some pretty compelling examples, and we're seeing an uptake in these kinds of campaigns where the Workforce Investment Board actually is serving to spearhead initiatives where they increase their business outreach, they encourage their local businesses, their small, medium-sized businesses, to think about what would it take to add just one worker. And not only what would it take, but how can we help? What can we do? What kind of services can we offer you? Whether it's on-the-job training, whether it's simply helping manage your resume and intake process while we focus on interviewing new people. So Jefferson County in Colorado is an example where you had 5 cities, you had 5 workforce boards, you had 4 chambers of commerce, all come together around this group of community leaders, this idea of if every one of the small and medium-sized businesses in Colorado would just add 1 employee, imagine what would happen. And they have managed, like Frederick Works, who operates a similar program with the support of chambers of commerce, with the support of the county commissioners, with the support of economic development agencies and chambers of commerce and the school board, to truly impact the unemployment rate in their area. And these initiatives, the example in Frederick's Works, is tied to 1,600 new jobs that would have not otherwise been created had the board had this campaign not had a conversation and had not encouraged their small and medium-sized businesses in their county to think about what it would take to add just one worker and provide the kinds of tools that those small and medium-sized businesses needed to add that one worker. So here you'll see just add one. Nobody else has seen this just add one besides me, my CEO, and everybody here in this room. NAWB has started to think about what can we do at the national level to drive this idea. What can we do at the national level to encourage those 578 workforce boards, those 3,000 one-stop career centers to think about what can they do in terms of business outreach? How can they provide the services that their small and medium-sized businesses need to help them add just one worker? And this isn't about, damn it, employers, if you would just hire more people, this unemployment rate would dramatically, everything would be fine. We understand that that's not what this is about. This is about the boards, this is about workforce development professionals having the expertise to be able to sit down and talk to business, understand what their issues are, and understand what tools they have in their tool. Whether it's Workforce Investment Act funding, whether it's outside funding from the state, from private companies, you name it. What can they do to truly help create jobs and help provide the training that actually makes that worker ready for that job? So those are really some of the ideas that I come here today to present, and to set the context a little bit for what I know you guys want to talk about, what I know Dean wants you to talk about. When we talk about workforce development at the national level, we actually talk about human capital development. We talk about talent development. And Dean from Greenville would have said, this isn't just about workforce development. This isn't just about the boards or just about the career centers. The role that the boards can play, the role that the public workforce system can play in impacting that entire continuum of human capital development, starting at education, going through to training, talking about making that match, helping businesses retain that worker, is pretty significant. And I hope that these examples in some small part help demonstrate how and why the public workforce system needs to start having a conversation a little bit outside of necessarily Workforce Investment Act, and really thinking about what is it going to take to impact that entire continuum, and who is it that we need to work with to make that happen. And we know it's going to be a whole host of people, a whole host of agencies, a whole host of organizations. So again, here's some ways to engage with us. We put on a large forum in Washington, D.C. It's coming up March 9th to the 12th. I'd encourage you all to come continue the dialogue and get an idea on where our head's at the National Association of Workforce Boards. Thank you.